Hi everybody. So I'd like to continue reading from Back to Eden. Something about seeing you guys posting videos and kind of facing my fears of reading out loud helps in this weird time to feel connected to everybody. I did want to share the tea that I'm drinking, and it's kind of inspired by a lot of different herbalists that I've taken some classes from, and I cleaned out the backyard of our apartment building yesterday a little bit, just kind of trying to set an outdoor space for me and possibly the neighbors to share. And we have an orange tree and a lemon tree back there, so I have lemon juice and ginger in my tea. Both are pretty good for cleaning the system, keeping circulation going. Normally I wouldn't drink ginger tea during the hottest part of the day. It's about 1 o'clock here, so I would usually save that for after supper, but I was just kind of craving it. Alright, so back to Eden. One of the things that Jethro talks a lot about is hydrotherapy, or the water cure, and he uses a lot of water internally with also enemas, and also just a lot of bathing and compresses, like strategically used. So I thought I might want to cover some of his water cure or water treatment chapters. So this chapter is called History of Water Cure. Water has been used from time immortal for remedial purposes. It is not a modern discovery. The books of the oldest medical authors make numerous references to the use of the bath in combating disease and to its good effect. The learned Greek Hippocrates, who lived about 500 years before Christ, was the first man who wrote much on the healing of disease with water. He is referred to as the father of medical literature. He used water extensively, both internally and externally, for combating disease. At a very early period, the Egyptians practiced bathing considerably, as you will find in sacred history. If Pharaoh's daughter had not gone down to the river to bathe, Moses would never have been found in the rushes. Ancient Egyptians' pictures found in tombs showed them preparing for a bath. Bathing held a prominent place in the law that was prepared by Moses under divine instruction for the government of the Hebrew nation. The relation of the bath in the treatment of leprosy would naturally lead us to believe that it was used for curative effects, and it would be impossible to believe that an agent held in such high regard as a primitive disease preventative of disease. And it would be impossible to believe that an agent held in such high regard as a preventative of disease should not be esteemed as a useful remedy. Side note, I had the privilege of visiting Egypt and Israel a couple of years ago, and at Karnak Temple in Luxor in Egypt, they have like a gigantic pool, like you're in the desert, right? For the monks to bathe, and also the Dead Sea Scroll folks, they were obsessed with bathing as well. I think they bathed like in the morning, before every meal, and at night. So the Dead Sea Scroll folks, they bathed 5 times a day, a minimum. That's probably a little bit more than necessary. The ancient Persians and Greeks erected stately and magnificent public buildings devoted to bathing. Darius, the Persian's baths are spoken of as being especially remarkable. The Romans surpassed all other nations in the costliness and magnificence of their bathing facilities. Some of their greatest works of architecture were their public baths. The baths were supplied with every convenience for increasing the use and luxury of bathing. Kings and emperors struggled for superiority in perfecting and enlarging those sanitary institutions. Some of them were large enough for 20,000 bathers to enjoy simultaneously. 20,000, that's bigger than the population of the town I grew up in. We had 18,000. At one time, the number of public baths in Rome reached the mark of nearly 1,000. Even Nero, who was a public disgrace, did at least one good act when he erected a beautiful public bath. 2 noted Latin physicians, Cellus and Galen, praised and glorified the bath as being invaluable. That was almost 2,000 years ago. Galen said that exercise and friction must be used with the bath to have a perfect cure. Friction, I think that alludes to massage. Exercise and massage with the bath. Okay. If only the regular physicians of a century ago had followed the practice of Galen as described in his works, what a lot of suffering would have been saved. Doctors would have refreshed and revived their patients who were fever-stricken with God-given water, instead of giving drugs, quinine, etc., and letting them be consumed by the fevers that parched their lips, disorganized their blood, and many times ended their suffering with their lives. The Emperor Augustus was cured by water remedies of a disease which had thwart all other remedies. Now, this next little section gets a little awkward. The Arabians have always been looked upon as a wandering horde of wild men, but about 1,000 years ago they had physicians among them that were some of the most learned of that age. They were very sensible and enthusiastic about the efficiency of the bath. Rahes, one of the most prominent of them, described a method that would scarcely be outdone by a present-day water treatment. The baths were used in pestilence. Horde of wild men. I don't know. That just seems a little colorful language from 1939. In Constantinople, the Turkish baths were used extensively in the 15th century. In the year 1600, public vapor baths were numerous in Paris. They were connected with the barber shops, as are many of this country's in the present time. Dr. Bell of Paris stated that in connection with the city hospitals, nearly 130,000 baths were given in one single year to outside patients. Undoubtedly, those in the hospitals were steamed and bathed as well. What a marked contrast with the present-day hospitals in this country, where we use water as where the use of water is most sadly neglected. Such neglect is inexcusable. Now that I think about it, when I've worked in hospitals, and I think nearly all of the hospital rooms have just showers. Like, you couldn't even get and have a soak if you were in the hospital. I know that some birthing centers have tubs in the room, but wow, the first time I read this, that didn't occur to me. Like, oh wow, we really don't have tubs in the hospitals. The Germans in olden times were very fond of bathing, according to the records of history. During the Middle Ages, when they had the leprosy plague, it was a religious duty to bathe because of the national faith of bathing. History tells us that Charlemagne had court in a huge warm bath. Can you imagine if governments were conducted in bathtubs? I mean, you'd be way more chill, right? So, like, blissed out. From the very earliest part of the 18th century, water was used. Floyer published A History of Bathing, where remarkable cures were made by means of bathing, and he recommended them for numerous diseases. A Mr. Hancock, who was a minister, published in 1723 a book called Common Water, the Best Cure for Fevers. Another book published by someone else was called Curiosities of Common Water, and was published in 1723, same year, in which it was said to be an excellent, quote, excellent remedy which will perform cures with very little trouble and without charge. May be truly styled a universal remedy, end quote. The French and German writers were also advocating the use of water as a remedy at the same time. In 1840 and to 1850, Victor Pieschnitz of Germany led the use of water as a curative. He was met with considerable opposition from the doctors when he took some of their patients and cured them after they had given up. He had an accident in which 3 of his ribs were broken. He treated himself with applications of cold water with success, and then tried it on others in a similar manner. His success encouraged him, and although he was an ignorant peasant, he learned various means to apply water to the body to suit different diseases. His success increased, and in a few years he was famous worldwide. He succeeded in restoring hundreds of people to health who had been pronounced incurable. His friends claimed he was a great discoverer, but he really discovered nothing that had not been known for at least a century, if not thousands of years before. But he was an ignorant peasant. Being of, like, working class country people, that just grinds me. That just gets me. But he was an ignorant peasant, as before stated, and had no anatomical knowledge, which caused him to fall into many errors, as some cases related. Water is one of the most powerful and yet simple remedies which can be applied by an intelligent mother who knows the effect of hot and cold, which we will deal with a little later. The water cure spread to America in about 1850, and until about now this part is very interesting, because I've heard with other concepts something similar happens when they try to come to America. The water cure spread to America about 1850 and until about 1854 prospered greatly. But the doctors would not stand for this, as they did not want the people to get a hold of any remedy which was practical and non-expensive, that could be used in any home. All right, so 4 years, it's gaining traction. People are learning, and the current American medical bodies are starting to get ticked. About 1870, they had successfully prevented the water cure practitioners from practicing in New York City by a medical law. New York City was headquarters, and as soon as it was stopped there, it was abandoned nearly everywhere for a while. So they literally made a law making a law preventing the practice of this, a medical law in New York City preventing the practice of water cure in 1870. So yeah, they gave them 20 years and then no more. North American Indians used baths for many diseases. Native Americans. They have original ways of giving both water and vapor bath, the vapor bath being the most common used, followed by plunging into a stream. The native Mexicans used a hot air bath. They confined themselves in a brick house heated by a furnace on the outside. They seemed to have implicit confidence in the efficiency of the bath to destroy disease, always using it when ill, with success. Dr. Benedict Lust published Sebastian Kiept Water and Herb Cure. Sebastian Kiept cured the Archduke Joseph of Austria of Bright's disease in 1892. Bright's disease is what is it? I forget the technical term, but it's inflammation of the kidneys. Kidney inflammation related disease. Sebastian Kiept, who was a Catholic priest of Bohemia, Europe, gained a high reputation because of his success with the water cure, and he also had his patients return in so far as was possible to nature. He had his patients return in so far as was possible to nature. He used the herbal remedies. His success was great, but he used natural remedies. If you cleanse and nourish the body properly and leave nature to itself, it will renovate and heal the body. Of late years, people have come to believe that there are remarkable virtues in certain spring waters. The claims that these waters are possessed of a wonderful healing virtue is not true. The healing virtue is in the moist heat that is gotten from it. The whole thing, in a nutshell, is that the use of water, combined with abundance, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, rest, recreation, and pleasant surroundings, affect a cure. I'm going to read that again because this, hella resonates with me. The whole thing, in a nutshell, is that the use of water, combined with abundance of fresh air, sunshine, exercise, rest, recreation, and pleasant surroundings, affects a cure. Unfortunately, in the early days, the reputation of water as a remedy was injured because people, such as Prisnitz, used it to extremes, did not understand the body or the uses of hot and cold water, and the useful and powerful reaction that can be brought about when it is properly used in this way. People are led to believe that it was a cure-all, and that cold water was the only remedy, no matter what condition or disease. In all cases, rest, pure air, nourishing and simple foods, sunlight, and exercise are of equal importance. Again, rest, pure air, nourishing and simple food, sunlight, and exercise are of equal importance. Rest and exercise. I like that he's like, pump the blood and take it easy. Water is not specific, but is one of the most valuable of many excellent remedies. It is true not only of water, but of other natural remedies. There may be a specific remedy for a specific disease, but not one, and one alone for all diseases. Several remedial agents must be combined to suit the conditions, and not one used for the condition of all others. But as will be shown later, water is an important agency in the treatment of every disease, correctly applied with other remedies. So later I'll get into like how he talks about the baths and how to apply them, like when to take a hot bath, when to take a cool bath, when to do alternating hot and cold, when to do a localized bath, when to do a steam bath, which might be hard over video to share, but there's some pictures and I can share those. Overall, this book, like, I'm really into it. I hope you guys like it. I feel like during this time where we want to be optimizing our bodies, it's just so nice to hear that exercise, sunshine, rest, and good food really goes far. Maybe I'll dig into some of his case studies after I cover the bathing part, just because it's funny how, not funny, but people are basically left for dead by the classical, or the modern doctors of the time, and he comes in with his traditional medicine and, takes people off their deathbed with basically some veggie broth and vigorous walking. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy, and take care, everybody. I really do like hearing from those who are sharing their readings, and also having people to share with during this time. All right, bye.